Britain is facing a crisis of leadership. Just 50 days into his premiership, Keir Starmer finds himself on the ropes amidst a wave of public outrage and criticism. What happened to his bold promises of a fresh start for the country? In this revealing documentary, we examine the unravelling narrative of Starmer's time in office so far, from his mishandling of the recent riots to the dramatic surge in energy bills. His early days as Prime Minister have been marred by chaos, controversy and accusations of incompetence. Join us as we analyse Starmer's initial missteps, his scramble to reverse Conservative policies, and the growing public discontent over issues like immigration and the cost of living crisis. Has Starmer's government lost control of the situation? Or can the embattled PM turn things around before his leadership implodes? Stay tuned as we investigate the real reasons behind this turmoil. How the man who promised stability and a new direction has delivered anything but in his first 50 days in power. Starmer's handling of the recent riots has raised serious concerns, particularly regarding his dismissive response and delayed reaction. The riots erupted across England following misinformation related to a tragic stabbing incident in Southport. Widespread unrest ensued, with rioters targeting police, mosques, and immigrant-owned businesses. Starmer's immediate reaction was to label all protesters as far-right thugs, vowing to bring them to justice.
I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend.
While far-right elements were present, dismissing all protesters in this way was an oversimplification that alienated many working-class Brits. Starmer also faced criticism for his slow response in convening Cobra, allowing the situation to escalate. His focus on the far-right narrative failed to address the complex factors fueling the unrest, frustration over immigration, inequality, and social integration. By reacting simplistically and downplaying these issues, Starmer missed an opportunity to engage with broader concerns. His disconnect from a significant portion of the public was on full display. The riots presented a major early test for the new government, and Starmer's response has left many questioning his leadership and judgment. For a PM who promised to be on the side of working people, his handling of this crisis showed a leader out of touch with the complex problems facing modern Britain.
Was dead and buried before it started. It's never been a deterrent. Look at the numbers that have come over in the first 6 and a bit months of this year. They're record numbers. That is the problem that we are inheriting. It has never acted as a deterrent.
One of Starmer's first moves as Prime Minister was to swiftly scrap the controversial Rwanda asylum plan introduced under Boris Johnson. The plan aimed to deter illegal immigration by sending asylum seekers arriving in the UK to Rwanda to have their claims processed. It faced opposition from critics as unethical, yet supporters saw it as a bold solution for border control. By abandoning this policy, Starmer has undermined efforts to tackle illegal immigration. The move sends a message of weakness to human traffickers and could embolden exploitation of the UK's immigration system. There are also financial implications. Millions were already invested into the Rwanda deal. Walking away now means substantial wasted costs. The Conservative perspective is that Starmer's decision will only encourage more dangerous channel crossings and trafficking. It reflects a failure to control borders and manage immigration effectively. The long-term efficacy of the policy was debatable, but Starmer's hasty scrapping of it leaves many questioning his sternness on the critical issue of illegal immigration. At a time when public concern is high, his approach risks deeper erosion of public confidence. Chapter 4: Surge in Migration. Since taking office, the number of immigrants arriving in the UK has surged under Starmer's leadership, with over 6,000 new arrivals reported already. This significant increase has many questioning Labour's promises of more robust border control. Starmer's softer stance seems to be encouraging more dangerous journeys across the Channel. The rising migration numbers suggest the previous government's deterrent policies have been undermined. There is growing concern over accommodating this influx and increased pressure on the already stretched asylum system. The government now faces mounting criticism over its failure to control borders effectively. While Starmer has vowed to tackle illegal immigration, the current spike in arrivals indicates the need for much stronger action. With thousands more migrants crossing the Channel, the drain on limited resources is worrying. The sustainability of supporting and processing these individuals through an overloaded system is in doubt. The surge reflects a broader loss of control over immigration under Starmer's fledgling administration. Unless concrete steps are taken soon, the UK risks continued escalation of an already dire situation. One of Starmer's biggest campaign promises was to freeze energy bills, but with the energy price cap now set to soar by PS 1500, his claim of a fully costed plan rings hollow. The factors behind rising energy bills are complex: increased wholesale prices due to global supply chain volatility and geopolitical tensions. But Starmer knew he couldn't control these market forces when making his pledge. While the UK's slow transition to renewable energy has increased exposure to price shocks, Starmer overpromised and underdelivered. His focus on long-term solutions through GB Energy does little to address the immediate crisis facing households. With the price cap rising by 9%, pushing annual bills to around PS 1740, the impact will be devastating, especially for lower-income families already struggling with the cost of living crisis. Starmer is learning the hard way being in government is very different from being in opposition. Easy to criticise, much harder to manage a crisis not of your making with the limited tools at your disposal. His failure to keep his promises on energy bills, while understandably difficult, risks further eroding public trust. People are suffering and need reassurance that their government has their back. On this critical issue, Starmer has so far come up short. In a rush to undo Conservative policies, Starmer's government has sparked fierce debate and added to the sense of disarray. On free speech, plans to ban so-called conversion therapy have raised concerns about restricting discussions on gender identity issues. Proposed changes to the definition of Islamophobia also worry critics of potential threats to academic and speech freedoms. In housing, the reversal of Tory policies removing mandatory building targets for councils has been contentious. While aimed at addressing the housing shortage, some fear it could lead to overdevelopment and erosion of green belt land. Starmer's insistence that building on parts of the green belt is necessary has drawn mixed reactions, seen by some as pragmatic, but by others as undermining protected spaces. In their haste to deliver on campaign pledges, Labour appears to be moving too fast, with poorly considered changes. The constant policy reversals and uncertainty over free speech and housing have only deepened perceptions of a government in disarray. For a party that criticised Conservatives for instability, Starmer's rushed early moves have achieved the opposite effect. While some changes may prove beneficial long-term, Labour's chaotic start has weakened public confidence. For Starmer to regain credibility, a steadier, more transparent policy hand is urgently required. Keir Starmer's first 50 days as Prime Minister have been a political rollercoaster culminating in chaos and crisis. From broken promises to reversed policies, his leadership has failed to deliver the stability and competence he vowed. The early days have been marred by missteps, a simplistic response to complex unrest, an abandonment of controversial border control measures, and a surge in unsustainable immigration numbers. Most damaging has been his failure to curb soaring energy bills, breaking a key pledge that leaves families struggling. And rushed reversals on housing, green belts and free speech have only added to the sense of mayhem. For a man who ran on a slogan of a new leadership, the start of the Starmer regime has been decidedly directionless. The public mood is a mix of anger, frustration and disappointment. Clearly, the challenges facing Britain cannot all be laid at the Prime Minister's door, but his clumsy handling and policy confusion has compounded the problems. The coming months will be make or break for Starmer's wobbly leadership. Will he gain control of the mess that is engulfing both the country and his party? Or will the sense of crisis consume his premiership before it ever had a chance to lift off, leaving Britain rudderless in turbulent waters? With his leadership floundering in the first 50 days, it is perhaps no surprise that Starmer's approval ratings have taken a nosedive since becoming Prime Minister. According to recent polling, his net satisfaction rating stands at just -21, a stark reversal from the heady days of the election campaign. The British public are voicing their displeasure over Starmer's broken promises and policy confusion. On key issues like immigration, energy bills, housing and free speech, many feel he has failed to take decisive action. Trust in his stewardship of the economy has also declined sharply. Facing crises on multiple fronts, the public verdict is that Starmer does not exude the confidence and competence expected of a Prime Minister. As the chaos and dissatisfaction grows, Labour MPs have reportedly begun voicing disquiet over his performance behind the scenes. With murmurs of leadership challenges already swirling, Starmer faces a race against time to regain public and party support. For a man who entered number 10 with lofty ambitions of transforming British politics, the unravelling of Starmer's honeymoon period has been swift and punishing. If he cannot chart a steadier course, his uninspiring premiership risks being cut short prematurely,